There was a time when football belonged to the streets, a time when loyalty, territory, and working class identity mattered just as much as the final score. A time when traveling away wasn't just a coach ride, it was a challenge. And on a cold February afternoon in 1973, Goodison Park became the center of one of the most infamous moments of that era. Millwall were drawn away to Everton in the FA Cup. Everton stood ready to defend their home end. Rumors spread that Millwall planned to take over the St. End and make a bold stand. What followed was not remembered for the football, not for the goals, but for violence and chaos that made national headlines, and left scars that Millwall fans still talk about generations later. This is the story of Everton versus Millwall Goodison Park, 1973, a match that became legend for all the wrong reasons. Football in the early 1970s was a different world. Stadiums were packed, standing terraces swayed with thousands, and policing was basic. A new culture was growing on the streets and inside the grounds. Britain was facing economic pressure, unemployment was rising, and working-class communities felt the strain. For many young men, football became an outlet, a place to prove yourself, to belong, and to represent your area. Millwall were already building a fearsome reputation at this time. Their away support traveled in numbers, stuck together, and never backed down from a hostile reception. Everton, meanwhile, had their own proud and passionate backing. Goodison Park was territorial, loud, and fiercely defended by the home faithful. Nothing came easy for visiting supporters, especially those who arrived looking for a fight. The FA Cup tie wasn't simply about football, it was about pride, reputation, and who controlled the ground. For Millwall's hardcore support, this wasn't just another away day, it was a chance to make a statement. Rumors began circulating that they planned to take the St. End, and Everton fans heard it too. In Liverpool, a challenge like that was never ignored. Millwall traveled north in numbers while around Goodison, Everton supporters prepared for their arrival. The tension was already building long before kickoff, but something else made the day even more explosive. Liverpool were playing at Anfield at the same time. Two major matches, tens of thousands of fans, and a single police force stretched thin across the city. That meant fewer officers at Goodison, just as Millwall began to arrive. It was a perfect storm. Two big games, limited policing, and two sets of supporters who weren't backing down. Goodison was ready, Millwall were here, and trouble was close behind. Trouble started before the gates even opened. The atmosphere turned hostile almost immediately. Fights broke out in the streets and groups clashed around the stadium as Everton fans moved to meet them head-on. The tension didn't stay outside for long. As crowds pushed through the turnstiles, the clashes spilled into the terraces. Small pockets of violence erupted across the ground, separated only by thin, overstretched lines of police. The match itself felt distant. The real battle was happening in the stands, the stairwells, and the narrow streets just outside. Inside the ground, the situation escalated fast. In several areas, Millwall supporters found themselves surrounded and outnumbered. What began as fists and boots quickly turned far more serious. During the chaos, several Millwall fans were stabbed, an event that would dominate the headlines for days. Many who traveled that day described the feeling of being hunted through the terraces or trying to escape through tight stairways while the violence raged around them. Even before full-time, news of the clashes had reached police control rooms and reporters across the country. The story wasn't the match, it was the bloodshed in the stands. And on the pitch, Millwall actually produced a superb performance. Winning 2-0 at Goodison Park, a huge FA Cup result by any measure. But inside the stadium, the goals barely registered. Shouting, sirens, and clashes drowned out the noise of the football. Many supporters only learned the final score once they were already leaving the ground. Others said they barely saw a minute of the match at all. For Millwall, it should have been a famous victory. Instead, it became a day defined by fear, violence, and headlines that spread nationwide. A match won on the pitch, but remembered for everything that happened off it.